It's a blessing to have you here. I've reached 65 myself, and I'm telling this story not just for entertainment, but so we can remember the days of our youth, back when hoofbeats and gunsmoke were the very breath of the West. Before we dive into this gripping tale, tell me, what are you doing as you listen to this? Leave me a note in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, I hope you're staying healthy and holding on to the spirit we've always been proud of. Now then, let's begin. I'd been living alone 8 long years, friend. No laughter, no supper shared. Just the wind howling through rotten fence posts and the sound of my horse breathing in the dark. I thought I'd grown used to that silence. Until that night, the night of the storm. Wind tore across the valley like the Lord's own whip. Rain slapped the windows so hard the glass rattled like gunfire. I was sitting by the fire, mending a torn bridle strap, when I heard it. Not a wolf's howl, not a tree snapping, but wood creaking. Slow, rhythmic, the sound a rope makes when it swings. I grabbed my lantern and stepped out onto the porch. And when the lightning flashed, my heart near stopped. There, hanging from the gatepost in the driving rain, was a young Apache woman. Her feet kicked weakly at empty air, hair plastered wet across her face. Each gust of wind cinched the rope tighter round her neck, dragging out a dry, rasping groan I'll never forget. She twisted there in the storm, fighting for her life. I stood, frozen lantern in my fist, heart pounding like war drums. The soldier in me whispered, "Walk away. This ain't your fight." But the man who'd once had a wife and child murmured back, "If that was Sarah, would you turn your back?" And I knew whatever I did next, my life would never be the same again. I don't remember how I made it out there. Just the sting of rain cutting my face, my hands numb as I climbed that post to cut her down. Knife shaking in my grip, maybe from the cold, maybe from my heart pounding too hard. The rope snapped. Her whole body collapsed into me, so light I could feel her ribs through the soaked fabric. She wheezed, throat bruised purple. When I pressed my ear close, I caught a whisper. Not English, but enough to know she was alive. I carried her inside. 8 years. 8 years since I last touched another soul like that. 8 years since I lost Sarah and little Molly. That, I've never told anyone, except my horse. And the wind. Back then, a patrol torched an Apache village to keep the border safe. Sarah was there bringing food to the children. Molly tagged along behind her mama. They called it an accident. Try digging through ashes for your little girl's necklace. And then tell me it was an accident. Since the day I buried them on the hill behind the house, I shut the world out. Didn't want to see nobody. Didn't want to save nobody. Had nothing left to lose. And yet tonight, God or the devil sent me this girl. I laid her near the fire, wrapped her in a wool blanket. Her throat was swollen, eyes shut tight but lashes trembling like she was still fighting death in her dreams. I dripped warm water on her lips, and my hand froze when I saw the cut on her arm. Not from a rope, from a knife. Not outlaws, soldiers. Out in the dark, hoofbeats echoed far off, or closer than I wanted to believe. And for the first time in 8 long years, I knew this ranch wouldn't stay quiet tonight. I'm mighty grateful you're here. If this story stirs up old memories, red dust afternoons, the thunder of hoofbeats in your chest, consider subscribing channel, so we can sit here together, day after day, and I'll tell you another tale from the Old West. She came to just past midnight. The storm still screamed against the door, but the fire in the hearth had burned low. I sat there with an old tin cup of coffee, eyes fixed on the hunting knife lying on the table. Out here, waking up next to a stranger usually means trouble's close behind. Her eyes opened black, catching the firelight. First came confusion, then caution, and finally, despair. "Don't be afraid," I said, my voice rough. "You're safe. At least for tonight." She tried to sit up, but pain in her neck dragged a low groan out of her. I steadied her, and for the first time I heard her speak rasping, but her English clear as day. "My name is Nayeli." That name hit me strange, beautiful, like wind whistling through a canyon. But it was her next words that froze the blood in my veins. "They're coming. Morrison's soldiers. They'll kill you. And they'll kill me." I went still. That name Morrison wasn't unfamiliar. He was the one who led the burnings in this territory 8 years ago. The man whose orders buried my wife and little girl. Why are they hunting you? I asked. Nayeli's trembling hand pulled a small leather pouch from her soaked belt. She untied it and opened it to reveal a stack of folded papers, army writing, red seals still intact. Proof, she whispered. Every village they burned, every woman they took, the names of the officers who gave the orders. I stared at those papers, every word cutting like a fresh blade into an old wound. What do you plan to do with it? I asked. Take it to the federal court, Nayeli said. If I live long enough. Outside. Hoofbeats pounded, not distant this time. Close. Getting closer. I blew out the lantern. In the dark, I saw her silhouette frail, but eyes burning like fire. And I understood. Tonight I wasn't just saving her. I was saving what was left of my own soul. Some nights, the Lord tests a man to see if there's any grit left in him. That night was my test. The hoofbeats outside grew louder, close enough to know this wasn't just a few drifters. This was soldiers. At least 10 of them. Maybe more. I'd heard about Morrison and his pack, how they hunted Apache like deer. And when they hunted, they left nothing breathing behind. Nayeli sat close to the hearth, clutching the leather pouch with the proof. Firelight danced in her eyes, no longer the eyes of a girl who'd been hanging hours earlier, but of someone ready to fight to the bitter end. She whispered, "Will you hand me over to them?" I stayed quiet a long moment. Then I told her the truth. 8 years ago, if you'd knocked on my door, maybe I would've. But not tonight. I pulled back an old rug, revealing a trap door beneath the floorboards. Inside lay what I'd buried for years. A hunting rifle, a few beat-up Winchesters, and gear nobody figured an old rancher would keep: snares, iron stakes, even a few cans of rail-grade dynamite. I'd sworn I'd never touch 'em again. That oath died the moment I cut the rope from her neck. "You know how to shoot?" I asked. Nayeli nodded. Her eyes unsettled me, calm, like someone who's seen death too many times. We started prepping. I showed her how to wedge chairs against the doors, scatter caltrops on the porch, rig snares in the dark. The wind howled through the cracks, matching the beat of a heart I thought had gone quiet years ago. When we set the last trap, I looked at her, rain-soaked, blood dried on her throat, hair plastered across half her face, and I saw Sarah. I saw Molly. I saw everything I'd lost. I rested a hand on her shoulder. "Tonight we might die." Nayeli didn't turn. She just said softly, "Then let's die right." Outside, the horses stopped. A man's voice rang out, cold, arrogant, cutting through the storm. "Redmont, open the door. Hand over the girl, or you're all going to hell together." I gripped the Winchester tighter, met Nayeli's eyes. No words needed. We both knew. From this moment on, there was no turning back. They were here. His voice cut through the storm. "Count to 3, Redmont. If you don't open this door, we'll open it for you." I'd heard that voice before. Morrison, the man who led the raid that burned my wife and child. Hearing him now, I knew the Lord had handed me a debt to settle. I glanced at Nayeli. She was crouched by the window, clutching the pistol I'd given her, no tremor in her grip. She was young, but those eyes burned bright. 3, Morrison roared. I whispered, "Wait for my signal." "Do." I drew a long breath. Sarah's face flashed in my mind. Molly's too. My finger curled tight around the trigger. 1. The wooden door shuddered as the first kick slammed against it. In that split second, I fired. The bullet ripped through the gap in the door, slamming into the soldier beside Morrison. He dropped hard, his scream ripped away by the wind. Gunfire answered in an instant, windows shattered, splinters flying like knives. Nayeli and I rolled to the floor, crawling toward our planned positions. The caltrops outside the porch did their work, horses screamed, men cursed as they trampled the hidden spikes. 2 dark figures lunged at the side door. Nayeli squeezed off 2 shots. One went down, the other fled into the storm. The wind howled like demons. Rain lashed our faces, mingling with the acrid stench of gunpowder. Morrison's voice rose again, furious now. "Burn them out, burn it all." I locked eyes with Nayeli. She understood. We abandoned our spots and dove into the cellar. The moment flames licked the roof, I yanked the fuse and the hidden dynamite along the wall went off with a deafening roar, hurling 3 soldiers into the mud. Smoke, fire, screams, chaos everywhere. And then, cutting through it all, I heard it. A child's cry. Faint, fragile. I froze. Morrison's harsh laugh carried through the storm. "Want to play hero, Redmont? My boy's out here. Come on out and see if you've got the guts." I turned to Nayeli. She was trembling, but not from fear. From fury. Tonight, there was no line between right and wrong anymore. Only a choice. Die like an animal, or stand like a man. The cry of that child cut straight through the rain, weak, but sharp enough to clamp my heart in a vice. Morrison knew exactly where to strike, and he'd found the mark. I shouted through the shattered window, "That child's got nothing to do with this." A cold laugh answered back. "This was never about you, Redmont. The boy's my blood. You want to keep that Apache girl? Fine, but you'll have to shoot through my son to do it." And in that instant, memories came flooding back. Molly, hair matted with blood, cradled in Sarah's arms that day. Morrison, the man who'd given the order to burn that village. He laughed while I dug graves for my wife and child. And now, he was using his own flesh and blood as a shield. Nayeli leaned close, whispering at my ear, "He's lying, that child isn't his. I know the mother. One of the women, Morrison." Her voice broke, but I understood. A filthy truth. Morrison had taken women during the raids. This child was living proof. Morrison roared again. "Hand over the Apache girl and the papers, or I'll burn you alive with this rat-a-hole you call a home." I breathed deep, tasting gunpowder and smoke on the rain. I used to think I'd run out of courage, but losing a wife, a daughter, friends, even the will to live turns a man into something dangerous. "I'm coming out," I yelled. I stepped onto the porch, rifle on my shoulder, rain slashing my face. Morrison stood 20 paces away, clutching the child tight against his chest like a shield. He still had that officer's good looks right up until he opened his mouth. "Drop the gun," he said. "Get on your knees." I smirked. "Ain't got knees to drop, Morrison. You took 'em 8 years ago, and 40. His eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. "You, Redmont." "Yeah," I said. "The widower you left breathing." The wind carried whatever curse he spat next. His rifle came up and so did mine. In that heartbeat, I couldn't hear the storm anymore. Only my own heartbeat. A shot rang out. Then Morrison screamed. The gunshot thundered through the storm, echoing across the valley. I don't know who fired first, me or him, only that Morrison staggered, eyes wide with shock. My bullet tore through his shoulder, forcing him to release the child. The baby tumbled into the mud, screaming. I charged forward, boots sinking into blood-soaked muck. Morrison crumpled to his knees, clutching his wound, crimson running thin under the rain. He tried raising his pistol again, but all it gave was a dry click. Empty. I stood over him, Winchester in hand, my heartbeat strangely calm. No storm, no voices, just me and the man who'd taken everything from me. "Redmont," he rasped. "Kill me, and you'll be just like me." I stared into those eyes, the same eyes that had laughed while my wife and child burned. And I knew I wasn't like him. "No," I whispered. "That's where we're different." I turned my back and scooped the crying child out of the mud. Behind me, Morrison screamed the guttural roar of a wounded beast, then silence. Nayeli's knife. Swift, clean, no words. I didn't blame her. Some men, dying is mercy. Then came the hoofbeats, distant but fast. Morrison's reinforcements. Not a handful, a whole squad. Torches flickered through the rain. Dozens of lights crawling down the ridge like hungry wolves. "We have to go," Nayeli said, clutching the pouch of papers. I held the baby close, feeling its faint breath on my neck. "North," I muttered. "The old trail, the one they've forgotten." We left the ranch behind. The house that had been my fortress now burned in the night, roof collapsing, flames painting the mud in hell's own colors. I didn't look back. A part of me died in that fire. And maybe that's the only reason I'm still alive. We walked through the night. The rain quit just before morning, leaving the land damp and heavy with the scent of smoke. The narrow trail cut through the canyon and opened onto the wide prairie ahead. In the east, the sun rose like a red blade, slicing through the fog. I carried the child on my back. It slept soundly, breath faint but steady. Beside me, Nayeli clutched the leather pouch tight, the evidence that could bury powerful men. Neither of us spoke. After a night like that, there weren't words big enough to fill the silence. At the valley's edge, I stopped. Looking back, all I could see was a column of black smoke rising into the pale sky. My ranch, my lonely fortress of 8 long years, was nothing but ashes. I thought it would hurt. Strangely, I just felt light. "Where will you go?" Nayeli asked softly. I stared west, where the mountains gave way to endless grass. "Somewhere that needs an old man who can mend fences. And shoot straight." She nodded once. "And I'll head north. Find the family I have left. And take these papers. Somewhere justice still means something." The morning wind caught her hair, blowing away the soot clinging to her shoulders. That young woman, once hanging in a storm, now stood tall, eyes fixed farther than the horizon. I looked down at the baby. It stirred, opened its eyes, and smiled. A weak little smile, but sharp enough to pierce an old man's heart. Been a long time since I remembered what it felt like to still have a reason to keep walking. "You're taking the child with you?" I asked. "I have to," she said. "This child is the last piece of proof. The world needs to know it exists." Behind us, faint hoofbeats faded into the distance. Morrison was dead, but men like him weren't. This land was full of ghosts. I handed the child back to Nayeli. "Go," I said. "Don't look back." She gripped my hand once, and for the last time then stepped into the northern mist. I turned toward the west. Each step felt like shedding another layer of the past. I had no home, no family. But that night in the mud, the blood, and a child's cry, I found something I thought I'd lost forever. The feeling that I was still human. So now, you know why an old man like me still sits here, telling stories by this dying fire. Years have passed since that stormy night. The old ranch is nothing but a scar in my memory now, a patch of cracked earth where grass still refuses to grow. I still remember the baby's cry that night. Strange, isn't it? Out of all the gunfire, the screams, the pounding rain on the roof, it's that cry that haunts me. It reminded me that no matter how rotten this world gets, there's always something left worth saving. Folks sometimes ask me, "Do you regret it?" Regret? Yeah, I do. I regret the 8 years I spent hiding, letting hatred gnaw at me day after day. But that night, the night I opened my door to a half-dead Apache girl, was the same night I opened a door for myself. A door out of the darkness. Nayeli, I heard she and the baby survived. The papers she carried dragged plenty of powerful men down into the dirt where they belonged. I never saw her again. Sometimes, it's better to leave a good memory untouched. And me? I just kept drifting. Fixing fences, mending wells, trading work for a warm meal. I don't chase peace anymore. I only hope, when my time comes, I die under a wide sky, so the wind can carry my wife and daughter's names back to me. If you're younger and hear this story and think, "I'd have chosen different," remember this. Out here in the West, there ain't always a right or wrong choice. There's only the choice you can live with. When you look in the mirror, that night, I chose to be human. And maybe that's enough to keep me going for a few more years. Thank you, friends, for staying with me till the end. If this story stirred up even a flicker of your own younger days, that's the greatest honor I could ask for. Subscribe if you'd like. So next time, we can sit here again, and I'll tell you another story from the wild, wild West.